Hello, Randy Rain here, and look what I have. It's another OmniBot 2000. Now this one isn't my OmniBot 2000. This is someone else's, and they want it fixed. So where did they bring it?
Randy Robot Garage.
So yeah, this isn't my OmniBot 2000. You can tell because it has the tray, and I don't have a tray. So someone wants me to fix this for them. And the first thing I did was see what actually works. So I put in the battery. I didn't put batteries in for the clock because some of the terminals are corroded and broken, which is something I'm going to be fixing. So when I turn it on, I can hear it cycling through in the gear and the head and stuff, but it should be making a beep sound at the end. And that signals it's gone through its startup cycle successfully. And I didn't hear that. On my OmniBot, that's how I knew when I got it working, when I heard the beep sound. Didn't hear the beep sound, but I went ahead and tried it. So I hit the arms, and the arms moved. The wrist turns, the claw opens, the claw closes, the head moves left and right. The light comes on. If I hear it do the gear shifting down, I can hear the gear shifting back and forth. But then when I try to move it, no go. And one of the buttons on here is for making that sound, which is supposed to be when it goes through the startup. But when I push that, nothing. So here's something, when I push the buttons that don't work, I can still hear. I can hear it coming in. If I turn the volume up, you can hear the sounds barely. So there's being transmission. Those buttons seem to be working. And the speaker system seems to be working as well. Even though I'm like 100% sure it's not the remote, I'm going to try my remote on it. So, arms, all that works. But then the sound, no sound, and it doesn't move. So I'm going to conclude that the remote works and it's something in here. By the way, the tape player does seem to be working, but I guess it's time to just get inside and fix what I can fix. I'm having a feeling that sound might be the hardest part. Let's see. And for everyone that knows about the OmniBot 2000, yes, I do have the switches in the right position. Time to check to see if this motor is working. So what you can do is take that drawer, put it here, and works nice to prop up the drive. On this plug here is the motors, the two here and two here. Okay, I have two clips hooked up here. That motor's working. Okay, that motor's working, but I'm going to go ahead and have a look in here. Everything looks good here. That gear's fine. Motors look good. So I'm going to go ahead and take this extension off. So the wires going to the motor are these right here. And they're coming in here, and they're getting connected here. And it's just a bypass so that you can get to these for accessories. But it's also coming in here. So this connection, the connection to the motor, and maybe even the board could all be faulty to keep the motor from making him go. So time to open this up. So this is the one going to the motor. Here it is coming from the circuit board. You can see none of these are connected on the OmniBot 2000. But I need to replace this. It looks good here, but it's missing part here. Just going to drill it out. Okay, to make these terminals, I'm just using a piece of brass I got at the hobby store. Not sure what the thickness is, I forget to look, but it's thin enough to do this. The other stuff gets too thick, so if you can do this, you're good. So it's about the same size as the terminals. Alright, to the shop. I'm sure there's a lot easier way of doing what I'm about to do next, but this is how I do it. I cut a little strip, then I'm going to cut a little cut 2 and 3, just like that. And then I'm going to do the other side, put a little cut, and a cut. And then you can go ahead and just cut that last one all the way through until you have that. And now fold on each one of those cuts. Then I bend these little flaps over. Meanwhile, I've been cleaning the other ones with a little CLR bath and kitchen. And this piece goes in here. And I take my little rivets that I just made. So if you take something and back up right where that is, right on the other side of the rivet, then you get them nice and smashed down. And I like to go ahead and solder them on this side. Now, just like to kind of bend them out, come up a little bit, and then bend it back. So I've cleaned it up a little bit, and I'm going to put it back together and see if any of the connections are now any better, and see if that's what was wrong with it. After I put it together, it still wasn't moving, so I sprayed WD-40 down in these switches. Moved them back and forth over and over a whole bunch of times, and now they're working. For some odd reason, you can switch the power going to the motors to these auxiliary ports for some reason. I don't know. It's some sort of accessory that went with this thing. I'm not really sure why you need that, but that's what it does. So the wires that run the motors come from the circuit board and come to this back panel back here. And this can be a spot that's not making good connection. And then it goes to these switches, and that could be the spot that's not making good connection, which is what was happening here. So after checking the continuity and finding indeed there is no electricity going through there, I sprayed some WD-40 down in the switches, and then I moved them back and forth a whole bunch of times until they worked again. So after it passes the switch here, it comes out of the circuit board and goes to the motors. There's several connections that could keep these motors from turning, and every time I've looked at one of these, it's always been something in there. So you can see the clock is working, and let's turn it on. And there's the beeps. So first, let's look at the arm. Arm goes out. Arm goes in. Arm turns, rotates. It opens the claw, closes the claw. The head turns. Like that. The lights come on. Lights go off. Sound. Oh yes. Then the tape function. Then the gear change. So we should be in low gear now. So, does he move? So here's the tray. It has this piece that covers that up. Or you can use this, and you're supposed to set glasses in here and they will rotate. And to activate it, there's a switch here that when the claw opens, it pushes up against this and starts rotating. It comes in power through here when you put it into the slot. I tested this, it does work, but when it pushed this and then it let go, it didn't stop. So I think the switch is stuck and it didn't work really well just because it's mainly dirty. So there's some screws here, but I think these are just for that. Start at the bottom. Looks like 8 screws here. Okay, so there's the switch. I don't see why it stayed on. Well, from looking down in here, looks like this should come off next. Still not getting to much here. Okay, so you have this piece here. And that's pushing up that thing. Not sure what that does yet. Gear down here seems to be turning a belt that's making these things turn around here. If I spin it, now it gets spun by here. This fits down into that gear and this turns it. So we have some sort of gearbox here. This is the ramp that pushes up on this thing. Got 2 switches here, so there's a little switch here. Here's our ground, negative. Let's see what's in here. Okay, so we have a DC motor here, a 10-tooth gear. It looks like it's in good shape, actually. Okay, here's how it works. I drew out the little schematics here. Positive and negative are coming into this thing. Positive is going straight to the motor. Negative is coming to a momentary switch, normally open. It's also going to a momentary switch, normally closed. And then it goes to the other side of the motor. So as long as this button is not pushed down, or if this button is pushed down, the motor will turn. So let me show you how this plays with this. So the first thing, let me remove this motor. And I want to take this gear right here. This is your typical TOMY right here. So there's a shaft, and the shaft has this side angle gear here connected to it. So this part of the gear is anchored to here. This gear is anchored to the shaft. But this piece of plastic here, you can see, is not anchored at all. It can rotate around. And the gear here, its shaft is anchored, so it's what I call a little satellite gear. So what this does is the motor is turning this gear. So this gear turns, which turns the whole thing, and it's also turning this gear here, of course, because it's connected to the shaft. So it spins. So you'll notice these little tabs sticking up right here. Those stop this thing at the right spot. So it moves to the right spot, and then it gets stopped, and now those gears turn. This would be connected to another gear. But then when it gets let up, it turns until it gets to the next gear. It gets stopped, and now it's connected to this gear. If that really doesn't make sense, let me show you it in action. So here's the gear in its spot. It's connected to the motor, so the motor is going to turn this gear, turning that shaft, turning that gear below, but this little piece here is only going to turn as long as nothing stops it. This piece right here is going to stop it. Watch. Here it comes. It's now stopped. And now that gear is connected to this one. So as that gear comes around, it connects here, and now it's turning all of those gears. This gear turns this gear. That gear is connected to a belt, which makes these things go around this little oval. You can see the belt right down here, right there. When one of these comes around, it pushes. When it gets to there, it's now pushing this lever right here, which moves this thing, which flips this lever here, allowing it to start moving again. So it comes over to here, which goes until it gets stopped by this piece, which connects the gear now to this side. So now it's spinning all these gears from here to here to here. From there it's connected to an angle gear that comes up to here, connecting this gear to this piece. So as this piece spins around, this ramp right here, so the ramp is pushing this up, which is also connected to here and is now pushing this up, which is lifting the glass up. So as it comes around, this little tab here is going to separate that momentary switch. So at this point, this is pushed down now, and electricity can't flow through here, and you haven't pushed the button so it can't flow through here, so the motor is stopped. So now if we push this button, which is the main button, and it connects, it turns this motor on. And you'll have to hold that switch down until the motor turns enough for it to get to that point. And now you can let up the main switch, and this switch here is allowing electricity to get to the motor. So as it continues to turn, it starts pushing on this thing. So that lever then pushes up, dislodging this, and now that thing spins that satellite gear around until it gets stopped back on this one here, which activates these gears, which turns the cups until they get into the position till it dislodges this. This now turns again, moving these gears and repeating the same thing over again until this comes around and turns it off. Pretty darn clever. So yeah, I think my big problem is just how rough this thing turns here. I think if this moved smoother, it would be better. So let's see what's under here. I knew it was going gonna fly. The belt's stuck underneath these tabs right here. And maybe if I pried it out, I could get it past there to get this belt out. It just seems more work than I need to do. Because this belt is not rubber, it's like plastic, and I don't want to put too much stress on it. All I gotta do is clean it, so I'll just clean it like it is. So yeah, this thing is very hard to turn. I'm gonna put some grease, at least on the outside, so it rub it against this back wall here. Be easier. Okay, a little tricky to get that thing back on there. And this piece, wire, was that, I believe. Okay, it's not easy to move, but it's easier. At least it's working correctly. Because it would stop there, and then when it keeps going, it'll push the next ones into spot. So now then that one will just let go and get to that spot, and it would stop and then pop up. Oh yeah, I forgot. I want to calibrate this thing by this being in the position that turns off that switch. So there, that should be fine. Now this can go back on. Which means I want it in this position here. So there it is, another OmniBot 2000 refurbished. It had the sound not working, it wasn't moving, battery terminals were corroded, and the tray wasn't working all that well. So I replaced the battery terminals, and I think just doing the connections over is what got the sound going again. And then back there in the switches was what's keeping this thing from moving forward. And the tray just needed to be tuned up and cleaned up. And now it works great. You ready to see? Alright, power on remote. And there it is. So that went through its full cycle, showing that it's in perfect working order. I can, of course, go forward and backwards, but I can also change gears to make it slower. So there it is. A little better. So we can turn this way, and we can turn this way, like this. But we want to see the tray in action. So what we do is we open the claw up, and the claw will eventually push this button on the tray. There it goes. There you go. Oh, you want another one? You don't want that one? Okay, well let me put this one down. push the button for the, there we go. Cheers. So yeah, I'm totally jealous that my OmniBot 2000 is missing the tray. So anybody have a tray out there? Well, anybody, if you have an OmniBot 2000 and this video helped you or you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. I'd appreciate it very much. If you want to see more stuff like this, subscribe. I want to thank these people here. These are patrons. If you follow the Patreon link below, of course, there is some perks to becoming a patron, so you might want to check that out. But there it is, everybody, the OmniBot 2000, another video with the tray. The tray. That was...
Randi Robot Garage.